Imagine this. It's December 1872. Out in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, the crew of the merchant ship Dei Gratia spots something strange on the horizon. Another ship, a brigantine, just like theirs, but it's drifting aimlessly, its sails flapping awkwardly in the wind. As they get closer, they identify it. It's the Mary Celeste. They hail her, shouting across the waves. Silence. They fire a signal. No response. A knot of dread tightens in their stomachs. Something is very, very wrong. Finally, they decide to board the silent vessel. What they discover, or more accurately, what they don't discover, will ignite one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. The ship is in near-perfect sailing condition. Its cargo is almost entirely untouched. The personal belongings of the crew are neatly stored in their cabins. But there isn't a single soul on board. The captain, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the entire crew of 7 professional sailors had vanished, seemingly into thin air. So let's set the scene. The Mary Celeste wasn't some rust bucket. She was a sturdy 103-foot brigantine, a real workhorse of the sea. On this particular voyage, she was carrying a cargo of 1,701 barrels of raw, industrial-grade alcohol destined for Genoa, Italy, all the way from New York City. At the helm was Captain Benjamin Briggs, a man highly respected in his field. He was known for being a fair leader, a skilled navigator, and a deeply religious family man. This wasn't just a job for him. He had invested his life savings into the ship and even brought his wife, Sarah, and their young daughter, Sophia, along for the voyage. They set sail on a crisp November 7th, 1872. Everything seemed normal. The ship's logbook found on board detailed the journey. The last entry was dated November 25th. It placed the ship about 400 miles west of the Azores Islands. The entry noted rough weather and heavy seas, but this was nothing an experienced crew on a well-built ship couldn't handle. It was certainly nothing catastrophic. And then silence. 10 days after that final log entry, the Mary Celeste was found, completely empty, sailing herself into history as the ultimate ghost ship. This is where the story goes from strange to utterly baffling. When the crew of the Dei Gratia stepped onto the deck of the Mary Celeste, they entered a scene frozen in time. The ship was wet, sure, with about 3.5 feet of water in the hold, but that was manageable. A single pump was found to be working, so they could have easily dealt with it. The sails were partially set, though some were torn, likely from the rough weather mentioned in the log. The ship's clock wasn't working, and the compass was damaged. One of the more peculiar findings was a long, deep cut along the starboard rail, about 9 feet long and a foot wide, but its origin was a complete mystery. Most importantly, the ship's single lifeboat was gone. Now that suggests an orderly evacuation, but why? The cargo of alcohol was almost entirely accounted for. Only 9 of the 1,701 barrels were found empty. In the captain's cabin, his navigational tools, crucial for any sailor, were missing. But everything else was there. His clothes, his wife's belongings, their daughter's toys. Even money was left untouched in a desk drawer. Below decks there was a 6-month supply of food and water. So I ask you, what possible emergency could have been so terrifying, so immediate, that it would force a veteran captain to abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship, taking his wife and infant child with him into a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the treacherous Atlantic? Over the last century and a half, Countless theories have tried to answer that question. Let's break down the most compelling ones. The leading theory, and the one that many experts find most plausible, revolves around that cargo, the industrial alcohol. This stuff wasn't for drinking. It was highly volatile and known to release flammable vapor. The 9 empty barrels were made of red oak, which is more porous than the white oak used for the others. It's possible that these barrels leaked, filling the hold with explosive fumes. Captain Briggs might have feared an imminent, catastrophic explosion. Fearing for his family and crew, he could have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, perhaps trailing the Mary Celeste with a long rope, intending to wait for the fumes to clear before reboarding. This idea of a fumeless blast, a burst of pressure without a major fire, could explain the lack of scorch marks. Maybe a small burst of pressure blew off a hatch cover, causing a sound that panicked everyone. A sudden squall could have then snapped the tow line, leaving them stranded as their ship sailed away without them. That mysterious cut on the rail? Perhaps it was damage from rigging torn loose in that small event. Then there's the classic explanation for any ship found empty: mutiny or piracy. This was actually the first suspicion when the ship was brought to port. The Attorney General prosecuting the salvage case even accused the Dei Gratia's crew of foul play, suggesting they had murdered everyone on the Mary Celeste to claim the salvage reward. But there was zero evidence. No signs of a struggle, no bloodstains. The personal belongings and valuables were all left behind, which makes piracy for profit seem incredibly unlikely. A mutiny is also hard to justify. Captain Briggs had a reputation for being fair and competent, not a tyrant who would drive his crew to rebellion. What about Mother Nature? Some have proposed a seaquake, an underwater earthquake, or a giant waterspout. A sudden, terrifying natural event could certainly scare a crew into abandoning their vessel. A waterspout could have sucked up water and dumped it on the deck, explaining the water in the hold and the damaged sails without causing major structural damage to the hull. This is a possibility, but it still feels like a stretch. Would it have been scary enough to make them leave a perfectly good ship for a tiny, fragile lifeboat? And of course, we can't talk about a ghost ship without touching on the supernatural. In later years, sensationalist writers tried to connect the Mary Celeste to the so-called Bermuda Triangle. This is pure fiction. The ship was found thousands of miles to the east, nowhere near the triangle. Theories involving sea monsters or alien abduction are fun for campfire stories, but they have no basis in fact. The real mystery of the Mary Celeste is so compelling precisely because the explanation is likely something rational, something we just can't piece together. The aftermath of the discovery was almost as strange as the event itself. The crew of the Dei Gratia, who found the ship, sailed it to Gibraltar. Instead of being hailed as heroes, they were put under suspicion during a lengthy and highly publicized Admiralty court hearing. The proceedings were filled with wild accusations of murder, conspiracy, and drunken mutiny, all of which were eventually dismissed for lack of evidence. The Dei Gratia crew was awarded a salvage payment, but it was much smaller than it should have been, a sign that the court never fully shook its suspicions. As for the Mary Celeste herself, she seemed cursed. She sailed for another 12 unlucky years under various owners, a floating reminder of her grim past. Her final voyage ended in 1885 when her last captain deliberately wrecked her on a reef in Haiti in an attempt at insurance fraud. It was a sad, ignominious end for a vessel at the heart of such an enduring mystery. The fate of Captain Briggs, his family, and his 7 crewmen was never determined. No bodies were ever found. No wreckage from the lifeboat ever surfaced. They simply vanished. The Mary Celeste story endures because it's the perfect locked-room mystery at sea. We have the ship, we have the clues, the empty barrels, the missing lifeboat, the abandoned belongings, but when we put them all together, the picture they form seems impossible. It is a chilling reminder of the power of the ocean, and how quickly a routine voyage can descend into a timeless enigma. It's a story of rational fear meeting the irrational sea, a testament to how quickly our world of order and logic can dissolve into profound and lasting mystery. So what do you believe happened to the 10 souls aboard the Mary Celeste? Was it a freak accident with the alcohol cargo, a violent act of nature, or something else entirely? Share your theory in the comments below. And if you're captivated by history's greatest enigmas, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Thanks for watching.